Life can be harsh everywhere, but in the old world, there was no hope of it ever improving. When our crops failed, the ruling class would still collect the same share, leaving our children to starve. And if we had any coin to our name, the taxman would appear, demanding it for the crown. The nobles hid behind the safety of their walls and did nothing when raiders pillaged the outskirts of the city. And so, some of us decided that it was time to leave, that we'd rather take our chances in the wilderness, seeking the promise of a new land, than starve to death in our homeland. The journey wasn't easy. We lost many along the way. This wild, unsettled land offers us the hope of a new start as the masters of our own destiny.
Well, hello again there, friends and fans. Raptor here, and welcome to our first look at a new update for Farthest Frontier. Officially the second update, coming out sometime in November, but it's available now for a public playtest. It's not necessarily officially released, but you can download it and try it yourself if you already own Farthest Frontier. I'll show you a little bit later in the video on how to do that. And if you haven't heard of or played Farthest Frontier before, man, this game is phenomenal. A wonderful Banish-style, medieval-style type game taking place in medieval times, seemingly more like Anno, with production chains that range from goods for your people to wear, to food, to tools, and even weapons that you can trade on the open market. Very fun, building defenses, building militaries, and there's full tutorials on many things in the game. So if you're already a big fan of this, or if you're just new, make sure you do subscribe and check some of those videos and playlists on the channel for more. Right, we're going to jump in and build ourselves a new city and talk about all the new things that I found so far, at least the most notable ones. But keep in mind, on the Steam store page for this game and also on the developer's website, they're continuously adding new notes on what they're going to have for this second update and future updates as well. Thanks again for subscribing to the channel. Thanks again for liking. Greatly appreciate that and certainly helps out. And thanks for becoming members. All you guys who become members time and time again. It's awesome to see you back and or supporting for the first time. So welcome aboard. We're going to start ourselves a new settlement right now and get cracking. So one of the first things that's notable in the game is that the developers have said that the newest update will make it so that way Vanquisher, the hardest difficulty, will have much more frequent and much more difficult enemies to fight. Pioneer and Trailblazer were deemed to be a little too difficult and frequent for constant invading armies, so they'll change slightly. They might be a little tougher, but possibly differ in their numbers. So if you're a big fan of the combat and defense in the game, just keep in mind that hard is now even harder, and the other basic, very easy and normal settings are just a little bit easier. If we take a look here at advanced settings, we can set everything to Vanquisher, and of course as we hover over each of these options, it'll tell us the different things it does, basically giving ourselves no extra resources, making it very difficult disease-wise, giving ourselves very dangerous wildlife to fight against, like wolves and bears and whatnot will be more present, and of course more frequent raiders. We can see the map seed up here, but we're going to probably just keep re-rolling until we find one that we really like, and maps are pretty much the same as of their recent updates, so we've got 5 major types plus the option to choose random. In this case, we'll just go for Alpine Valleys because I find that to be the most beautiful. Pacifist mode is still here, which means that we can basically go into full peace mode where we don't have to kill anything that's hostile, but we can still do things like hunt deer and farm and build defenses, even though they're not necessary, which is cool. It's been around for a while and a great part of the game. All right, let's go ahead and call this one Testville. And let's go ahead and jump in. That should be good enough. All right, let's get there, and I'll show you how to start a city, and we'll talk about all the new things coming in the next update. Let's go. All right, here we are, another village, another update. I'm very excited. So our scouts have finished looking around the surrounding area, so let's find out where we want to build our settlement. Now, ideally, when we try to do a full series or a large live stream checking out a new update or whatnot, we usually take a bit more time to find a beautiful lake or something like that. In this case, we really don't have the luxury, so we're just going to go ahead and look around for any sort of body of water and once we find a good one, we'll build somewhere near there. I've only seen that small pond just a moment ago, so we'll go ahead and settle somewhere nearby. It's a good source of water and, of course, food and also materials, too, to build all sorts of different things. So let's go ahead and get cracking right about here. Perfect. And it begins. All right. The community center is down, and so our villagers will start working right away to clear the area, and we'll go ahead and dedicate a little bit of time to clearing trees around the initial start area, too. Perfect. So the great thing about bodies of water is they usually have willow or berries near them. Willow can be used to make backpacks or baskets, really, that they wear on their back. And also, of course, fish and a few other berries that can be moved, such as blueberries. There's also hawthorns and other things that spawn, but there you go. All right, so things that are new. Right off the bat, new decorations available for Tier 2 and Tier 3 construction. Things like a flagpole and also a flower urn. We also have our standard statues, and there might be more styles for those available, including some other decorations that go well next to a possible trade depot or market, things like crates and barrels that really are fitting the part of where they could be, and also more large parks and such, as well as the typical trees and whatnot. Now, another thing that's new is fencing for the Tier 2 and, or rather Tier 3 and Tier 4. We now have some hedge fences that seem to be made out of brick that also have some decorative hedges on them, so perfect for building a university or putting around a hospital or a bougie downtown area. And the same with the wrought iron fence, which basically will give us, you can put it around a national cemetery, you could put it around military buildings, or possibly even your main building, and kind of cordon things off, make different sectors and quarters for your towns, which is pretty cool. Some other major updates that I've noticed in the patch notes for this game is that barns now will produce waste during the winter months. So cows, as they go inside the barn, will of course make manure, and that can be collected in the winter months and then brought to the night soil or compost site to be used on your farms. And of course, in this game, it has an incredible realistic fertility system and also, of course, crop rotation. So that's really, really, really good. And so that's going to be very powerful. In addition to that, you can now more reliably have your oxen, or rather your cows, I should say. I saw the oxen here, but you can have your cows what would you call it? Go to pasture, I guess, or really just feed on the graze. That's what I'm looking for on the fields, and then they can also, of course, eat those crops too if you're not careful. So make sure you have fallow down for that year, and then you can have them fertilize the field automatically, naturally, that way. Additionally, barns will now stop disabling milk production. They should be able to make milk all the time, and milk will just be immediately brought to the markets for sale as it's fresh. And if it's not used, of course, it'll just spoil and be thrown out until you have a cheese baker, which then can take advantage of all the milk that you have. Excess milk is sold immediately, otherwise it's made into cheese. All right, looks like we got people clearing the land already. We got some boulders in the way and some trees that are being cut down, so that's pretty good. Additionally, there's been some reworking for, I believe, some of the AI pathing, both on the enemy side and your character side, or really your people side too. So not only are raiders a little bit better at pathing through certain areas where they may have just kind of all attacked a wall at the same time and didn't go through a gap when it was breached. So now they might do that, and also your people are a little bit faster at getting to locations, especially when they're off in the distance. Now, I didn't see too many problems with the AI, but they seem to go straight there regardless, but apparently they would maybe get stuck or do things a little unreliably. So now it's more reliable, which is fantastic. Now, there's still going to be future plans for things like the ability to move graveyards or perhaps destroy them somehow at a debuff, and there's also the idea of more religious buildings like churches, but that's not around at the moment. So it's something we're going to have to wait for, but it's good to see that there are some new items already to start with. So all the decorations, great for the desirability. That's one thing that has confused a lot of players and has kind of gotten a few people to watch a lot more tutorial videos. So that's great that a lot of people are moving to YouTube and Twitch to watch those videos and live streams to learn. But now there's more tutorials in the game. You'll see it as it pops up. The game now has much more in-depth tutorials for things like desirability. I believe if we click that overlay, or maybe it's really when we build some more houses, there's more helpful tutorials than ever for things like desirability. I guess it'll count once we have houses actually built, but more for graveyards, more for farming, and so there's really tutorials that you can turn off at any time for some of the major aspects of the game, which can be quite tricky if you're not used to it and or are playing for the first time, so that's good to know. Also, I think I've noticed that the unhappy markers are also popping up above people's heads that I don't remember seeing before. It's been a little while since I played. Forgive me, it's been about maybe 2 months or so since I've come back to Farthest Frontier, but now the update is a fantastic time to check it out, so I'm excited about that. They've also added some new rocks that are mega rocks. We don't see it here at the moment, but there's a rock I think that produces somewhere around, well, thousands of stone, and that's good for, especially if you're building a road network in your town, upgrading from dirt roads to actual cobblestone roads. It makes a big difference, so that's good. All right, the people are getting cracking. We're going to go into Speed 2 now. Remember, in this game, the seasons go very quickly. Very, very quickly, spring becomes summer, and then summer very quickly becomes late fall, and the next thing you know, it's winter. So we're going to go ahead and have them build that town hall first. That's actually the first thing we need to do. We're not allowed to build houses until that's complete. So, and I believe some buildings may have had their costs changed around a little bit. A lot of balancing and fixes to certain things back-end wise. So either a lot more adjustment to cost for buildings so you can build them cheaper, or to make them a little more difficult to manage. Like, for example, it seems like the tower is now more expensive to build than ever, at least that I recall. And it looks like arrows and such have been adjusted too for how many might be able to be stored in those buildings. Possibly. We'll see. Now, for those of you wondering how to access this beta, I'm going to, a little bit later in the video, put down some instructions. It could be a little tricky. Typically on YouTube, there are tons of tutorials on how to access beta branches for any sort of game, and it's the same for any game on Steam, where once you have Farthest Frontier installed, you can right-click and go to Properties, and then you can go to Betas, and if you click that, you'll see a drop-down that says None, and in there, you should be able to click None, and it should drop down to a playtest. However, for this playtest, you require a specific code, so I'll make sure to put that down below in the description, so that way you guys can see the step-by-step where to click, and then you can copy and paste that code from this video in the description into your there should be a little bar at the bottom that says unlock code or key code, and then when you type that in, you can then click None, and it should drop down to say playtest whatever versions that are currently available, and then you should be able to pick the, I believe there's only one that will be listed for the time being that's for a public playtest, though kind of locked. I think development teams should make those more public, especially so people can give more feedback, but that is something that they at least want you to go to the forums to report any sort of bugs for. So if you encounter anything that you don't think is right, just do the devs a favor and report it, so that way they can squash those bugs and make the game even better. Now, I've noticed after playing for a while, unfortunately, the frame rates still seem to be a major issue for this game, going from right now about 60 frames a second right now, which I think is the game's maximum, to just after a live stream hitting tier 2, about 4 hours of play, starting to drop down into the mid to low 40s, which means that very quickly we would be in the 30s and then down to about the 10s, which it's almost unplayable, really, especially if you're trying to enjoy your city, kind of just going about the typical zoom of the camera. YouTube's, by the way, compression for this game is atrocious. We've tried many times to get the quality up, so if it doesn't look as pretty. The game is beautiful with tons of detail. A lot of people were saying that the trees appeared to be different in our live streams. There was apparently some more tree models added. I don't know if it was recently, or maybe we've never seen some of these trees before. They tweaked it and didn't mention it, but I find that to be unlikely. But it is a beautiful game regardless. Perhaps we all just forgot how gorgeous it is to see. And I will definitely see some people comparing this to, now that we've had a chance to test out Manor Lords, I still like Farthest Frontier quite a bit. I think Farthest Frontier is one of the greatest games in terms of the farming systems that I've seen that really are close to what's offered in Ostriv. And I think Farthest Frontier, Ostriv, and also Manor Lords have had some of the greatest farming systems I've ever seen, with Ostriv just by a little taking the cake because it was first and is still implementing things like oxen and whatnot being used on the fields to plow. And I hope to see that in Farthest Frontier. But still, Farthest Frontier does a few things better. I just think it's great that instead of making more labor for more humans, you work intelligently by having the animals do it, and then also work with things like fertilization and compost, which is great. All right, we got some people here being attacked by a dire wolf, or rather just a regular wolf. I believe the dire wolf in the game should spawn at random and attack your people, but wolves should only spawn from like a wolf den, so we'll have to go out and see if that's a thing now. Let's see how our people will do. Oh, we've got a man here almost dead. Let's just go ahead and see what happens here for demonstration purposes. It looks like he is actually leaving. and he might actually die from festering wounds, so we'll see how that plays out. He's going right back to work to, wow, cut down the trees there. What a trooper. But we're going to clear out all these trees so we can then build houses. And I think for demonstration purposes, we'll just build a few on either side. I think we'll build maybe 3 on each side. And we'll let them get started there. Wagons in the way. It looks like flat land here. Another thing is needed, by the way. It looks like the developers have made the ability to flatten land a lot easier, so you have to do it a lot less. In other words, you can just basically click once for land to be flattened, and then it should be a little bit more reliable. Typically in the past, in order to build a wall or a large barn or any sort of major structure like a barracks, it takes a while, several times of flattening land in order to basically flatten that land out and make it usable for a barn or a barracks. Typically large buildings, maybe even a theater, but those are the buildings that usually gave me the most trouble because they were larger. And so in this case, we'll be able to flatten land a lot better for maybe a wall, or at least for building gates and things like that, and a barracks nearby. My typical build style of building a barracks near a gate with some towers and trying to lock down a section like that. Blueberry bushes are still movable. If you want to see a tutorial on how to do that, you can literally move blueberry bushes in this game. If you find blueberry bushes, you can click on them, click the yellow button in the upper right corner, and then move it to wherever you want, and you can make like vineyards that way. So that's going to be quite cool. And I've noticed that a few things seemingly have changed for the trader too. Now, not in this update do we have the ability to order. That should be something coming in the future where you'll be able to talk to vendors and tell them what you'd like for the next year. And for a small fee, they'll be able to deliver some of the things that you demand. So keep in mind that that's something the developers want to add and will be coming soon. I really feel like some of those smaller things should be in day one, but they are still working on bug fixes and making things more efficient. But I still want to see that frame rate skyrocket because this game, again, is a game I really believe in and think is a game that really reminds me of Banished, at the same time also being a great step somewhere between Ostriv and Foundation and Manor Lords as well. And I don't think any of these games are really truly better than the other or are much more of a favorite than mine. I just like what these games do differently. But I also like how they're very familiar. Obviously, cutting down trees and building houses with that and then taking the remaining wood to turn it into firewood is something that we've seen time and time again in all these games. But that is something that settlers had to do. In fact, in games like, for example, Medieval Dynasty, that's another thing you have to do as well. Cut down tons of trees, build houses, provide firewood and food to your people. Just do so on like a third-person or first-person basis. But this, a much larger scale, is something that is much more feasible that way. Now, I've noticed a few other changes in the game to basically how the systems run. It looks like there's a little bit more efficiency into how the, going kind of back to the AI, it looks like they're a little bit more intelligent in terms of how they'll deliver things. So, like, for example, if a construction site doesn't have materials, it looks like they'll better deliver materials to a construction site before doing construction. Sometimes they would drop items in the middle of the road, and they might still do that, especially if they prioritize a need, such as needing food or shelter or something along those lines. But it seems like, at least in this case, they're better to prioritize going home first and getting their skill up, then going out and delivering things. Oftentimes, you'd find things abandoned in the road, and somebody else would have to come up and pick up the slack. So if you were building a like a theater out of town and the bricks were stored over on the other side, then it would take a little bit of time for them to get there. They would drop their items, and then you would kind of have a stop in production. So that's hopefully going to solve that. We're going to build a well here too. For the most part, it looks like a lot of the things have not changed, which is great for basic well building and also keeping groundwater bonuses. It looks like the devs kept in a lot of the things related to seasonal water changes, where if the rain of the spring or the autumns come through, it actually gives a bonus to the well, which is fantastic because the wells can dry up and will slowly gain water over time. And then that's also used by industries too, which is fantastic. Now, I haven't noticed any new industry buildings, but what is good though, at least, is we're seeing more tier 4 stuff, more end game stuff, which we really didn't get to build before. Tier 3 is essentially where a lot of everything ends. There's no other buildings past Tier 3, at least at the moment still, even though we're recording this on the 26th of October, so I'm hoping that we get a few more tricks and things that maybe perhaps they'll drop at the end and say, hey, we're actually going to include this. But there is a festival pole now, and that is a decorative item that also acts as a service item. So this essentially will act like maybe a pub without any sort of functioning materials required to make people happy. There's no input to it in order to provide the service. So essentially, it's like something you could put near the marketplace for people to celebrate, and then they'll go and dance around it. Increases desirability, and I think might also increase happiness just because it gives them something fun to do, because it says there, entertained villagers are happy villagers, so that's fantastic. So hope to see more items like that where people can interact with them, and more things to build larger markets, rather than just the marketplace building itself. To build a large square and then put a festival pole around it would be fantastic. Another thing I would love to see in this game is, since we're now starting to see festivals, it would be cool if we could actually pick like a festival for our people to celebrate, like a celebration of the arts or a harvest or beer or something like that. And if you provide them with the items like just a feast or something for your first year surviving, that you could get some real great bonuses for providing people an opportunity to celebrate, a reason, and which would give you a kind of a creationist culture. You'd be able to create lore for your people, which would be amazing. And of course, kind of, it's really make your own kind of story type game. We don't get to go back to the village and the cutscene that you saw to like get revenge or whatnot. But it would be cool if there was a story mode to do that, and many more modes where it would not just be an endless survival city builder, which it is now, but also to have goals to complete and maybe perhaps have a storyline, maybe even similar to Stronghold, where it would just be the economic campaign of providing just let's say 1,000 apples or something by the end of year 4. Or providing a bunch of ale for an upcoming celebration or a king's birthday or something. Who knows? But anyway, we're going to tidy up those roads a little bit. I haven't seen any new roads yet. I was hoping to see Tier 3 roads that would use bricks rather than cobblestone. I think that would be amazing. These are still some ideas that everybody's having, and I see a lot of things being shared on their official forums too, and a lot of people saying things like... some of the day one requests still being there, which are good. I think those are updates and things that could be added at any time. Like, for example, the cemeteries being able to be moved. But I guess bug squashing and improvements come first, quality of life and whatnot. So that's pretty cool. Same old music and beautiful leaves moving around. Beautiful weather transitions in the game. And, of course, the ability to see fertility by literally looking at the ground. You can kind of see where more fertile soil is just by paying attention to where grasses kind of change a little bit. You can see this looks a little different here than this area over here. And so, of course, we got cabbage over there, greens, if you will. And so we'll be able to harvest some stuff from there with a gatherer very soon. We're going to build a hunter now so we can get through the winter. The first year, it's basically build a couple of homes, provide firewood as quickly as possible, and also some basic food. So we'll build a firewood cutter. Maybe we'll build it down here. Just get started that way. Oh, I just accidentally clicked, but that was one of the pop-ups for standard pop-up letting you know that you need to build an X number of houses for villagers to join. And I think we have to amass a certain amount of food, but we're going to do that right now. So we're going to build ourselves a firewood cutter, so that way they can go and cut firewood for the smokehouse and for the hunter cabin. And they'll be able to keep warm. Houses, of course, require firewood. Pretty much all the buildings require firewood to function, either to keep the building warm or to produce something like, for example, let's say the candle workshop might require wood to smelt the wax in order to make candles, or the pottery building in order to make pottery out of clay, which is pretty cool. All right now we got people toying around with wheelbarrows. I believe the amount of wheelbarrows given to your town have been increased. The amount of people who have access to push things around with a wheelbarrow has been increased, so that way things can get done faster, but you still have the bonus of finding a small lake and then, of course, getting basket weaving going. I don't even know where our small lake is right now at the moment. We'll have to go out and scout. Scouting is still the same. You just hit explore and someone will kind of walk out there, although more than likely we're going to have somebody die to rabies. With one bite of a wolf, they could definitely die. Luckily, that first guy did not... he was almost killed to death. He almost died to death. Can you believe that? And yet, he is still coming back strong, so good to see. But yeah, I hope to see a lot more improvements to things like, for example, decorations. The developers did show a lot more decorations even in their first update post, showing a lot more buildings that are going to be made of brick. So Tier 3 right now is showing a lot of things made of stone and iron, decorative trees, and things made of wood. But I think Tier 4 needs to have more of the squares that we can, of course, upgrade Tier 2 up to tier 3 that has brick. So I still want to see more, much more from this game in terms of features being offered. But a lot of the farming has been improved, as we mentioned earlier about the cow barns and the production of milk. The production chain, I guess, when they produce milk is a little bit more streamlined, and there's, again, no reason not to produce milk. And a few buildings, I think, have been reworked with their timing and might actually cost a little bit more, a little bit less, maybe take a little longer to build or trade. But, of course, in the previous update, the trade depot has been much more greatly improved, where you can actually see what is going on in terms of, like, who is arriving, who it is. It's going to be great. More updates, more improvements to the trade depot. I think that's going to be awesome. Hopefully, hoping to see much more of that confirmed in the future, in addition to what I mentioned about the order system from before. All right, well, our wagon has some tools, some weapons. All right, let's go ahead and move these over here. Let's get that a little closer to the main building. There we go. Now, there are some still pending confirmations about what they're going to do for a transportation of goods. For example, with the little wagon here, it was intended that in the future, perhaps you could use these storage carts to be able to actually put things into them to store them to another, bring them to another building. Example being, like, you could send your people out to a forest to cut down a bunch of trees, have it put on the wagon. The wagon would take a little bit of time to get back to the camp, but it's better than having everybody carry stuff one by one. So it's going to have a little bit more function and possibly a building to deliver to in the future, and maybe work independently. But again, these are TBD things that are not yet available in the current update, but I think should be, but hopefully will be coming soon. All right, let's go ahead and build one more house here. We did flatten out some more land. That flattening is working out really well. Great example here of a lot of the land being flattened very quickly, or at least much better. You still might have to do things multiple times, but with having to do it less times, that's a much better improvement. Okay, we got somebody here working at the fire camp here. Here we go, our first tutorial. Fantastic. So this is a much better option now. I think these might actually, some of these might play as a video, but this is a fantastic amount of detail that will tell you about the work areas. Now, as a player who played Dawn of Man primarily, learning about the work areas, essentially we're just setting up a circle for them to go and hunt or gather or cut down wood from or what have you. So in this case, we're going to use the hunter's cabin to go find wherever deer are, and then select the hunter to go basically hunt them. We could also hunt boar, we could also hunt wolves, or at least protect against them. So wherever we put the hunter, they're probably going to go find something. So let's actually have them go explore a little bit. Looks like we don't have some animals at the moment. But if we build a gatherer's hut now, it's the end of the season, so that will probably go bad shortly. But another goal is to try to go out and find that lake so we can do fishing year-round. Luckily, that is something we can do day or night, rain or shine. So that's pretty cool. All right, so we've got 6 homes built. And we've got firewood coming in, or at least being made now, finally. It'll take a little bit of time, but food is, of course, the utmost priority right now. And I've also noticed that there is a change to the weather, too. Apparently, the higher difficulties will have much more extreme cold and much more violent weather. It basically will have more changes to it. It'll be very, very cold one winter and then just cold the next. And so you'll have much more frequent blizzards, which will require more firewood to be produced, and it'll be consumed more by your buildings, and also shorten the time which your people can be out in the open and die to exposure. It's going to take a very short amount of time now rather than a longer time. Frame rate holding pretty solid right now at about 60 frames. So as we continue to build our town, should be able to build, if we could fill this entire map that we see right now with buildings, it would probably be down somewhere in the 10s or 20s. But I've built massive cities before that are also compatible with this update. Not sure if I mentioned it before, but so far with my testing of previous saves, I have been able to load at least a few cities that I've tried with the playtest. So I hope that when the full version is out in November for the full update, that it'll allow even your day one cities to still be used in the recent or newest update. So again, changing major things is a very big problem, very tricky to do that without breaking a save. So it looks like all the new added things and the back-end tweakings have been really efficiently done, which I guess is why it may have taken so long for them to plan out. Wow, we got our man here who's almost dead. Actually, oh, there was a death. That sounded like a death. Who was that, though? Starvation? What was it? Predator sighted? Oh, God. All right, that person certainly died from wounds. And somebody died from exposure. Interesting. Probably lack of firewood, but we got that going now. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they died because of lack of clothes. All right, let's go ahead and see if we can find some more food here. Oh, boy. All right, lucky for us, Testberg was only a test. Oh, hold on a second. We've got a bear in town. Oh, how unbearable. Look, he's just sitting there like, hey, what am I going to do? Who am I going to attack? Don't you go for the grocery store, because I'm supposed to talk about that for the next part of the update, bear. Sir? All right, he knows what's up. Maybe he's just looking to see what's up. Okay, sir. Anyway, so now grocers have stocking that have changed a little bit. They can store food a little bit more. And, oh boy. Just ignore him. He does this a lot. I don't know. Why are you like this? Could you please? I'm trying to host a tutorial video, sir. Anyway, right. So grocers, a lot of players used to turn them off because the food would spoil a lot faster at the grocery stores. And so, you know, basically you don't want to overstock the grocery area, or really the market. So now they kind of do a little bit more of, you know, better and faster trading. So they'll basically bring things to the market faster and then start selling those. So things like food and firewood, water, soap, herbs, luxury goods are all brought here and then can be quickly distributed that way. And so these grocers should be able to bring things faster to homes now. Like, for example, if a shelter... Oh, boy. I'm just ignoring this. I'm ignoring this. Okay, I'm not. Okay, sir, you are almost dead. Get out of here. Oh boy, hold on. I got a little problem. Sir, you're interrupting the tutorial. Okay, I'm gonna bring him down to the guardhouse if he doesn't die already. Anyway, this is a whole different town we were working on in the live stream, but as I was trying to say, now it's just more efficient to actually use these. It's much better and bigger benefit, and you can get a little bit more cash from them that way because they're just better working. And of course, when you upgrade your homes, you'll be able to, as you can see, the service area here, you can fit homes inside of here, and then of course it's better to not have them overlap, right? So you won't need to overlap markets to make sure it's efficiently done. One market should suffice for all those homes, and then of course you'll make money for all the markets that do cover some of those houses. There's more details to the desirability as well. So as you can see, the current desirability of each house is displayed. There's a little bit more detail on when you're putting something in, how much more it will give to a particular structure. So if we put down a flagpole, you'll kind of see a little bit. It's a little easier to see the certain percentage and what buildings are affected. I still wish, especially with decoration buildings, it would show what the area of effect is, like in a large circle or a square, whatever it happened to be. But you can still tell by basically putting it somewhere near the homes. One thing I like to do in this game too, a great idea, is for your marketplaces, if you put a large square between the homes, this is a great way to leave space for future theaters in the middle of town, and also hospitals, and also a great way to put down new items such as the flagpole and additional markets. So if you make kind of like two main streets, you know, on either side with a bunch of buildings, you can then put all the decoration down the middle. Fitting in things to have desirability later in the game is kind of tough. Like with this house, it's only at 21 out of 30, even with a marketplace and a shrine next door, and we're building a hospital, and we're building a schoolhouse, and I still don't think that'll be enough. I don't even know how I've been able to do desirability so often in this game. Would you guys please leave me alone? The bear is back. Okay, now he's dead. Wait, no, he's back again. Sir! Why do you have to interrupt my tutorials so much like this? That's so rude. I can't believe it. Anyway, just keep in mind that there's some debuffs in the game for putting... if you put down negative buildings like a mine or a compost heap or something, people won't like that. Anything that smells or makes noise, they don't want to be near. So blacksmiths kind of do both. Glass blowers do both. And the bears. Okay, this... Alright, this is becoming like... Why does this always happen to me? That's why we have a bear emote. It's why if you go to my main channel page right now, you'll literally see a bear hiding in the corner. You go see it. Go ahead. I'll wait. Did you see it? Yeah, if you go to the main channel page, the banner in the upper right corner, you saw it, right? Yeah. I'm trying to host a tutorial, sir. All right, so there's also quality of life improvements. So the professions window kind of now has the ability to save professions between reloads. There used to be some sort of a weird thing where somehow it would get mixed up and like some of your jobs might not have been saved, where it would have weird numbers of deficiency. So sometimes jobs would drop to 0. So it's kind of just more of an update to fix what seemed to be a bug. And also it's a little easier to manage when people have died. I think there's new symbols above a building if it's not full capacity or if it's off completely. Like in this case, the firewood splitter here is okay being off for now. But, you know, it just lets us know that somebody's not there. This has always been here if it wasn't fully staffed, but I think it's now easier to tell on the professions tab. A thing should turn orange if a building's not fully stocked when it should be. So if you have somebody who should be working at a building and they've vanished, then you know what to do. So another thing too is for wall building. We don't have any walls at the moment, but when you build walls in this game, the enemy, of course, can attack them and either damage them or destroy them. Now, damage such as the buildings, and I'm glad now that the bear attacked, all of this damage is repaired automatically. So this building's health bar is about halfway, and eventually it'll go back to full if somebody comes and repairs the building. Now, as far as I know at the moment, I swear to God. Oh my God. He just won't stop. Anyway, so... I'm sorry, I'm distracted. I'm so sorry. But anyway, as far as I know, these buildings are repaired for free at random, and it doesn't cost material or gold. However, when it comes to abandoned buildings or buildings that are condemned, I still think there needs to be a better tutorial for that. I have not yet seen a building become condemned or abandoned in the game, so I don't know if the devs popped up a tutorial for that, but I hope that's one of the tutorials that they've included, because when a building becomes abandoned, that means that it is basically lost one of the things that they required for their desirability. It's usually desirability, I should say. It's usually that you got invaded, some invaders came in and destroyed a park, and now you can't find out why the location desirability's gone from like 29 or from 30 to 29. It's sitting at 29, and you're like, why is it at 29? Well, you got to rebuild the park. Otherwise, the building will be abandoned. The people will just be like, hey, we got a great life, but we're 1% below our desirability, so we're out. They could have a school and a hospital and good jobs and clean water, clothing, and amazing amounts of money. But if the theater across town burns down, they're out. So you got to keep that in mind. Now, I think they also adjusted the time for how long a building can become abandoned, because sometimes you'll upgrade a park, and I believe it turns off the park. Like, they can't use it if it becomes a construction site. So keep in mind that it might still be a good idea to build the parks first and have your layouts ready ahead of time, because in the time that a park is getting materials delivered to upgrade from Tier 1 to Tier 2, houses could become abandoned. And I still think the only way to deal with them is deleting them and rebuilding them, and then they'll automatically upgrade. I haven't seen any changes to that yet, but if not, it definitely needs to change. So going back to what I was saying too about the walls, there's now much more aggressive invaders. So, you know, as you have to manage other things in the game, like for example the, oh boy. Oh, he's almost got him. So as you have to manage the desirability by having all sorts of theaters and parks and taverns and whatnot, you'll now also have to manage more invasions. So perhaps in this time here we'll get invaded a little bit more. We'll have to see if that actually happens. But we do have in this map a very nice, there's actually a lake here, and there's a little pond here. So the enemy will have to go through this very narrow spot to attack us, and also here too. So they're going to have to go through very narrow areas, which would be perfect for us to build a little barracks and a gate. A barracks is like a super tower that of course can also house troops, and putting it next to a gate just makes it almost unstoppable. So that's going to be fantastic. And of course, a little bit more reworking in the tutorial for the trading port. I think if you try to do your first trade, it will pop up. The trading port or post will have very important information that will highlight pretty much everything. So every little button that you see here, there will be like a square around it, and it'll point to what each of these things do, how to transfer, like what transporting or transferring money from the trading post to the town hall or back is. You know, it's like trading between or transferring money between your savings and checking account. That's essentially what that is. But lots of big changes, lots of good stuff, I must say. And I like what I've seen so far for those types of things. And just a huge list of bug fixes. Like, for example, there was a problem where certain things wouldn't display no entertainment icons. and you know, it was like basically providing entertainment when it shouldn't. I think the brewery was like showing that it was not providing entertainment and it shouldn't have, or it was and it shouldn't have, something like that. So essentially now only the tavern gives entertainment. Sorry, folks. Yeah, no more, as they say, no more, you know, brewery tours, that kind of thing. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff coming out for this Big O update. It should be around soon. Again, if you just got to this part of the video and skipped past where to get the information about the update on how to get it now and when it's coming out, again, remember, this will be coming out at the end of November. So, or rather, my bad, at the start of November. We're playing this at the end of October, so I'm hoping that any of the things that have been changed for this update on the back end for the developers will get into the final version. Now, what we're seeing here is not like it's a public test of the update, so not everything is included, not everything's working right, and so they're taking a list of bugs to squash, they're adding new features as time goes on, and then they'll put it all into a sweet little package for us sometime in November, hopefully within the first week at the very start. That's going to be pretty cool. So there's also a section for the playtester FAQ. If you guys want more information on that, just go to their forums, just at, I think it's crateentertainment.com, and that's a good resource as well if you want to be like a playtester and get some of that stuff early and give more feedback. I think you'll just have to sign up for that, or at least join their Discord to give direct feedback. That's probably what they want the most is, you know, they don't mind people trying out things early, but they just want it to be a, you know, two-way street for getting information and making bug fixes. So a lot of good work so far, a lot of things that need to be improved upon though, and a very long list of small things that I think make a big difference. For example, having to use theaters, pubs, and festival poles as your entertainment now more than anything else, and that's going to be a big desirability boost, which is fantastic. So, good times, good times. All right. Alright, so to clarify some few remaining features or details for features being added to this update, I just wanted to make mention that the walls can now be prioritized too, so when you're building defenses in your town, I may have forgotten to mention this, but you can now prioritize them. I got distracted by the bear, my bad. You know, bears are always attacking me. So yeah, defensive walls can now be prioritized, so if you're going to be building a large defense, you can tell your people to build that first, and or to repair certain sections before others. So that's fantastic. Also, there was a word on condemned buildings that means that they'll now be salvageable and relocatable, but if you try to move them when they're damaged, it'll basically add repair costs to it, that type of thing. So there are some costs to adjusting with those condemned and abandoned buildings, but I think that it still needs to be sorted out more, and that there needs to be more detail for that, as well as a builder cap of 100 being removed. You can put everybody onto building the Ray Wall. So if you got a population of 300, want everyone to build a massive defense, there you go. Alright, if you watched to the end of the video, glory to Raptoria down below in the comment section, or cheeseburger, or the last thing that you had for supper. And also, if you missed out on how to download the update and get access to it, make sure you watch back towards the start of our gameplay so you can kind of find out where to find that, and kind of a audible description of where to find that on Steam so you can get access to it. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. Thanks for dropping in. We'll have more details and information on Farthest Frontier and more live streams too, and I'll share more information with you as soon as we find it out, as soon as it's added, or as soon as we discover what's new in Farthest Frontier. Thanks again. We'll see you all next time. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for dropping in. Bye.